Good morning, U.S. history students. Welcome to week 2 of online instruction. This is the agenda for today. So on the Google Docs, you should have already completed the warm-up on CNN 10 simply by clicking on the link and writing 2 stories from that daily news broadcast. I introduced the next topic of Unit 8, the modern era, which is the events that happened on 9/11. So we did a quick warm-up by watching a video and answering a couple of questions to get us a basic understanding of what happened on 9/11. So at this point, after the video, you are going to be completing a short reading on more specifics, the actual events and timeline of 9/11, so that you get a basic understanding of what that event, why did that event happen, and what actually happened. And then the main assignment for today is comparing national security or civil liberties during this terrorist times. If you don't know what national security or civil liberties are, you will by the end of this lesson. So that at the end, you could use the video, the reading, and the assignment to complete the reflective questions. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you feel like you need to pause at any moment, feel free to just pause this video and then look and then go at your own pace. And if you have any additional questions, remember that my office hours are every Tuesdays and every Thursday at 1:30 to 2:10. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop by at those times. So we are in Unit 8, the modern era, and the date that we are specifically focusing on this week is September 11, 2001. So the objective. Historians will be able to question the balance between national security and civil liberties after 9/11 by referencing primary and secondary sources in order to answer a reflective questions. So once again, today we're focusing on national security and civil liberties after 9/11. What is the balance between the two? By looking at primary and secondary sources like the reading and the video and the political cartoon in order to answer a couple of reflective questions at the end. The essential question that it's going to be in the back of our minds as we go through this lesson is the following. How does the balance between ensuring national security and protecting civil liberties shift after a terrorist attack? Again, if you don't know what national security is or civil liberties, you will by the end of this lesson. But today our main focus is national security and civil liberties. How does that balance shift after we are attacked, after we're threatened and we don't feel safe anymore? But before we get started, we need to understand what is national security and what are civil liberties. So in order for us to understand this, we're going to go through a couple of key terms. You don't have to write them down unless you need to on a separate sheet of paper. But again, you could pause and forward this video at your own pace. So national security. The protection of the interests and people of a country. So the national security is protecting the people in your country. So this is what the government wants. The government wants national, the whole country, security, the country to be safe. So they protect the interests of the people of that country. So the U.S. government is going to protect the interests and people of the United States. The U.S. government protects our national security. Civil liberties. Civil liberties is the rights guaranteed by the law as in the U.S. Bill of Rights. For example, you have the civil liberties of freedom of speech. So basically, what are your rights as a person? So the Constitution has the first 10 amendments and certain laws that are given to people, people's liberties. Those rights include freedom of speech, freedom to own a gun, freedom to a fair trial. Those are your civil liberties that nobody could take away from you. So we're going to talk about how national security, what the government does to protect you, and your civil liberties, well, you have a right as a person in America. How do those conflict and how do those bump heads during times of national security or a terrorist attack? So we're going to talk about that today. So before we get started, what happened on 9/11? So you should have already completed a quick T-chart on the Google Docs. By answering a couple of questions. The questions around this question, what happened on 9/11? So you would write down at least one thing on each box. What do you know? What do you think? And what do you want? So this is for us to get a basic understanding of where you're at about this topic. So in the first box, what do you know? This is where you're going to write things that you know for sure, that you know that are not going to change. So you need to write at least one thing in each box. So for example, in the first box, I would write that I know for sure is that on 9/11, 2001 was the day that the United States was attacked on U.S. soil. So that's something that I know for sure that happened on 9/11. If I know nothing else, I know that for sure. So I'm going to write that down in that box. In the second box, what do you think you know? This is where you write things you are not so sure about, but you kind of think that you know. So, for example, we were attacked on 9/11 on American soil by rebel Islamic groups. I think it was Muslim groups from the Middle East, but I'm not entirely sure. But I think I know this, so I'm going to write down in that box. And the third one, what do I want to know? Things that you would want to find out more about 9/11. For example, how was it possible for three planes to have attacked us on the same day? Like, why did nobody stop them? How did that happen, basically? So I would want to know that answer, and I would want that answer to be answered to me by the end of this lesson. So a T-chart answering what you know, what you think you know, and what you want to know. After you had completed the T-chart to know where you're at, you are going to watch a short video after completing the T-chart. Basically, after you watch the video to get a more basic understanding, you will write down at least one new thing you learned from the video or found interesting. You should have already completed this before you got to this video. Okay, so this is a political cartoon from the New Yorker. We are going to do a cartoon analysis in the form of a C mean matter chart. You don't have this in your Google Docs, but it is in the PowerPoint so that we get a basic understanding of what 9/11 was about. So what do you see? What does it mean? And why does it matter? So take a second to pause this video and just answer to yourself or write it in a separate sheet of paper. What do you see in this political cartoon? Just basically, what are things that you notice, images, drawings? What is something that you actually see on that cartoon? What do you think it means? Why do you think we're seeing that image? And why does it matter? So take a moment to pause this video. Okay. So now that we're back, we are going to do this cartoon analysis. I'm going to go through it myself just so that you understand what you should have been doing. What do you see? What does it mean? What does it matter? So what I see in this political cartoon is it looks like Santa Claus. So it's Christmas time. It's happy, jolly December. Joy is in the air. Santa Claus is passing through a metal detector, which is usually what I see like when you're entering a government building or the airport. And he's getting screened. And in the background, I see people surprised or people just like shocked that this is happening. And his belongings are being scanned. And what we see in his bags are nothing threatening, just toys to bring joy to kids and families. So what do I think it means is that this was published on, what I think it means is that this was published on December 3, 2001. I know that for sure, something that I know from the teacher is that 9/11 happened in September 11, 2001. So this was about 3 months after the 9/11 attack. So this was after we were attacked by airplanes. So what I'm thinking is that the meaning of this is that nobody is safe from scanning. So nobody is safe from being suspicious, from being seen as suspicious or threatening the country, not even Santa Claus. And why does it matter? Where people used to be wholesome and sweet and not threatening, now after we're attacked and after we're scared, not even Santa Claus is safe. We don't trust anybody. So there's this level of distrust against even the most jolly person of all, which is Saint Nick. Okay, so now that we completed a quick political cartoon analysis, please pause this video and do this quick check for understanding so that I know that you understand where we're at so far. So pause this video and remember, lift up your phone as if you're going to take and open up your camera like you're going to take a picture. A little link should pop up. Complete the Google form. After you complete this video, you can go ahead and move on. So now that we have a basic understanding of what happened on 9/11, you did a video analysis, a T-chart, and a cartoon analysis. Now you're going to get a more in-depth understanding by reading a secondary source on what happened on 9/11. So if you have no basic understanding of what happened on that date, you will by the end of this reading. So make sure to read the secondary source, annotate the source, focusing on T and H, talking to the text and highlighting important information, and make sure to answer those questions in complete sentences. All right, so after you do the reading, the last main assignment you're going to do is balancing national security and civil liberties. Remember, national security is what the government does to protect the interests of its people. And civil liberties are your rights, basically your freedom of speech, your rights that are given by the U.S. Constitution, by the Bill of Rights, your personal freedoms. After the 9/11 attacks, we no longer wanted to be, we no longer could be safe. So the U.S. passed the U.S. Patriot Act in 2001. What the U.S. Patriot Act basically did is that it was passed on October 12, 2001, so like a month and a half after 9/11 happened. It took only 2 days for the act to pass the House and the Senate. That rarely happens. It takes a long time for a bill to pass, but the Patriot Act happened right away. Again, this shows how people were so scared after the attack. The purpose of the act is to stop and punish terrorist acts in the United States by increasing the power of law enforcement agencies. Some people believe it does not go far enough to enhance national security, while others believe it goes too far by violating civil liberties. So basically, there's this tug of war. People say that we need to protect our national security, give more power to the government, while others said, no, it is violating our civil liberties by the government tapping into our phones. So there was this tug of war between the difference between national security and civil liberties. So today, in order to get an understanding of how people felt about national security and civil liberties, you will be reading excerpts or little passages from both the House of Congress, House of Reps, and the Senate regarding the Patriot Act. You're going to read at least 2 excerpts, so you have 6 to choose from. You get to choose whichever one you want, and decide is the person more concerned about national security or civil liberties. You're going to explain your answer using evidence from the sources. So you're basically going to click on the images of the House of Reps, of Congress, the people, and the Senate, the people, and then you're going to read what they think about the events that the Patriot Act. And you're going to understand, is it more national security or are they more concerned about civil liberties? And you're going to get that evidence from reading their little passages. At the end, you're going to be able to answer a couple of questions about everything that we learned, including the video, the political cartoon, the reading, and now the excerpts. So you're going to use all that evidence to answer these reflective questions. Remember to use complete sentences. And just as a bonus, if you would want to know more about this, please check out Sonia Sotomayor's reflection on 9/11. She kind of gives her opinion about the events that happened. This is a bonus, so you get a more understanding of the events that happened just by clicking on that link. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, please pop into my office hours Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1:30 to 2:10. Otherwise, good luck, and I'll see you guys next week.